pretty much by definition, a team that won 81 games in 2022 and 79 games in 2023 needs upgrades. So how do the Giants fix their team? What upgrades do they need to make in the offseason to get themselves back to where they need to be, which is a contender, not a team floundering around 500?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube, so check us out there if you haven't already. Please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Swing for the fences on sleeper picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And coming up on today's show, as I said yesterday, we're going to be doing dipping into our mailbag, which, you know, we have a zillion questions, and they're always great, and it's always a lot of fun, the interaction. At some point, I want to be doing like live Q&A. I'm working on that. We're going to have that at some point for you. So be sure to come back every day for the updates on that. And that could be very soon that we end up figuring that out. But the first question today comes from Avinash, who says the roster needs a lot. Mostly offensive players that are full-time, in my humble opinion, or in my honest opinion. I realize IMHO, there's some controversy. Does it mean humble or honest, the H? Anyway, in your opinion, so what do you think they need? The bullpen and starting rotation seems decent, maybe a top-end starter. And as I said, clearly, if you're winning 81 games in 2022, 79 in 2023, man, that's just like hitting me, by the way. The disappointment of 2 straight years of that is rough. And so, yeah, this roster needs something. So your question is, what is it that they need? And I think that I agree with you that pretty much what I see what they need, like in kind of a broad sense, is more high-end talent on both sides, like whether it's a pitcher or a hitter, but mostly hitters. I agree with you. I think that there aren't those anchors. It's funny because I want to say like a Mookie Betts and a Freddie Freeman, but we just saw, by the way, those guys go, I think they had 1 hit combined as they got swept in the division series, which is awesome and hilarious, and Dodgers. They won as many playoff games as the Giants this year, and they also lost in the division series last year. Obviously, better to make the playoffs than not. Obviously, their regular seasons are more enjoyable these last couple of years, winning, 111 2 years ago, 100 this year. No playoff success to speak of, and so, sucks. But anyway, just had to throw a little shade at the guys down south there. But yeah, I mean, like a Mookie Betts and a Freddie Freeman, and the Dodgers, they acquired those guys recently, you know, and before they acquired those two, they didn't have that kind of player on the offensive side. They were more made up, I want to say, somewhat similar to how the Giants are made up. Remember, I mean, Farhan Zaidi was their general manager, and you know, guys like Max Muncy came out of nowhere to be a good player for them. And I don't know, they drafted really well and homegrown. They had some homegrown stars like Corey Seager show up, and then, you know, Will Smith and some others. They had like Matt Kemp at some point, at certain points being good for them. But I think the Giants need to figure out a way to get some higher end position player talent. I think there's no question about it. And like, if you could just plunk Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman onto this roster and keep, Tyro and Luciano and JD Davis and Lamont Wade and the outfield, obviously. I mean, if you put Betts out in the outfield and then you've got Yaz and Slater and, Mitch Haniger is going to be back. He's under contract. So they just need higher end talent. They need simply better players. They've got like a solid, I don't want to say foundation, but they've got a solid like collection of, or they've got a decent collection of solid players is what I'm trying to say. But that doesn't add up to enough. And, like they're the inverse of the Angels. The Angels have like the high-end talent, but they don't have what the Giants have. If you meshed those two franchises together, you would form a really good team like the Dodgers. Where if the Giants had Trout and Ohtani both healthy and playing at their peak, then the Giants would be a powerhouse, in my opinion. Or at least they'd be much better than they are now. And so it's a good place to start. Like, it's better to have the depth than to not have it. Plus, the Giants have a lot of youth that arrived in 2023 and looks to continue to move in that direction in 2024 as guys, it's not like guys fully broke out and just like established themselves as mainstays, certainties at the major league level, but like, a Marco Luciano, Luis Matos, Kyle Harrison, like all of those guys have the potential for like breakouts in 2024. And so anyway, but just to answer your question, I know I'm like going off the rails. I think that multiple higher end offensive players who are everyday players, I agree with you, full-time, not platoon players. And also, yeah, the bullpen I think is solid enough. The starting rotation is decent. And you've got, like, when you look at, okay, Webb, there's a club option for Cobb. And then you've got these young guys like Tristan, Beck, Keaton, Winn, Kyle Harrison. I do think maybe one high-end starter to pair with Logan Webb there at the top, and that becomes a pretty intriguing rotation. But the biggest need is on the position player side. But also just don't stand pat on the pitching side. I'm not going to just gloss over that I said go get a frontline arm to pair with Logan Webb, someone on a long-term deal, like a Yamamoto out of Japan, who apparently is very much on their radar. So, go get Ohtani, go get Yamamoto, trade for Juan Soto, and call it a day, something like that. Who knows? I mean, they've got to feel the pressure to get better, and hopefully they do, and I'm not making any promises, but hopefully they do. So the next question is actually very specific. It is about the player Sonny Gray, and whether the Giants should pursue him in free agency. I just mentioned top-end starting pitchers. Is he a candidate to be that guy? We will answer that question and many others in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Sleeper. The MLB playoffs are here, and your clock is ticking on your chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball's never been more exciting than it is right now, especially with the playoffs going on and all the players who are still, on teams that are alive in the postseason. Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve. The Dodgers just got eliminated, which is hilarious. I'll continue to bring that up. Bryce Harper, Ronald Acuna, and Texas Rangers, Corey Seager. So many stars in today's game. And you can get in on these playoff games and get in on the action and simply pick a game, and for any individual player, just look through all the different stats and simply pick more or less on things like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you could win big. Entries can be made in under 1 minute. Use our promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. All right, as promised, more questions and answers. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. I know that these episodes are coming out a little bit later in the afternoon during the off season, but they are daily nonetheless, and we are with you every single day. And man, I mean, the managerial search is still going on, and at some point that there's going to be news and it's going to be huge. So come back every day, and if there's any updates at all, we will be all over it. So the next question comes from Daniel, who says, Sonny Gray reminds me a lot of Alex Cobb when he hit free agency. He's in his mid-30s, has had an up-and-down career, but has shown promise at times. Would he be a fit, and what would it cost? So what I'm going to have to do is pull up Sonny Gray on Fangraphs, which is where I go for my baseball info. So the Twins have been eliminated. Sad for them. They finally won a playoff game for the first time since 2004. They had been 0-18 in playoff games since 2004. They finally won the wild card round, but then lost in the division series to the Astros, who go to their 7th straight ALCS, which is insane. So, I mean, Sonny Gray is coming off basically 2 consecutive phenomenal seasons in Minnesota where, I mean, he was there just 2 years, and he had a combined 2.90 ERA in 303 and 2/3 innings. So I think that the value is higher than Alex Cobb's when the Giants signed Cobb for like 2 years, $20 million with a club option for a 3rd year. So I think the cost would be much more than that. But when we, like you mentioned the age, yeah, he's going to turn 34 in less than a month. And so it does kind of fit the Giants' MO of, and plus he played in the Bay Area. So there's familiarity with the Bay Area. Maybe he liked it. I have no idea. Maybe he hated it and doesn't want to come back. So I can't say like, oh, because he played for the A's, therefore he'll want to play for the Giants. I have no idea. Maybe the opposite is true. But nevertheless, I mean, he's a good pitcher. He's coming off a year in which he had a 2.79 ERA, 2.83 fielding independent pitching. The expected ERA was a bit higher. It's odd. Like he seems to suppress home runs pretty well, but he's not like a super high ground ball pitcher, although he used to be. So I don't know if he changed his pitch mix a little bit. The strikeout rate has climbed steadily down after a couple of really high strikeout rate seasons in Cincinnati. One of those was the short 2020 season, so I kind of actually don't read into that too much. Basically, he's a good pitcher, and there's some Bay Area ties with him. He's coming off a 4-year, $45 million extension, or contract, I guess I should say, that started in 2020. I guess that was with the Reds, and then he was traded in a trade that I think actually the Reds lived to regret, or the Twins maybe lived to regret. But regardless, what is the question? Is he a fit, and what would it cost? I think he's a fit, but I'm surprised. This is super random, but I was reading an Alex Pavlovich article yesterday, and while I normally agree with a lot of what Alex Pavlovich says, he said that I think it was Pavlovich. Maybe I'm wrong, in which case I shouldn't say this, but he was talking about how, I forget what the point was, but he said, in this market that is thin on starting pitching. And I'm just like, what? That if there's a strength to this market, it's starting pitching. There is so much, if I look at the 2023, 2024 free agent class, the problem is for the Giants is that there aren't a lot of impact position players. But when I just look at starting pitchers, I'm just going to scroll through here and rattle off some names. We've got Sonny Gray We've got Clayton Kershaw is a free agent. We'll see. Obviously, I don't think he's going to end up on the Giants. Tyler Mahle is interesting, and actually, he was the guy in that trade that the Twins maybe lived to regret. We've got Jordan Montgomery, who was a big trade acquisition for the Rangers and has helped them advance to the ALCS. And Aaron Nola, Shohei Ohtani, but he's not going to pitch next year. Eduardo Rodriguez can opt out, but he kind of made it sound like he doesn't want to opt out, so maybe not him. Blake Snell, who's probably going to win the Cy Young Award, is going to be a free agent. Marcus Stroman can opt out of 1 year, $21 million, and he probably will. I know he had an injury late in the year. Julio Urias, although he was like arrested for, I don't know if I can even say it on my show, so I won't, but never mind on him. There's no chance the Giants mess around with Julio Urias. But I don't know. I feel like I guess when Urias was a possibility, that made it a stronger class. But I just named a lot of good pitchers, right? I mean, the guy who's probably going to win the Cy Young, Aaron Nola, Jordan Montgomery. I just wouldn't call it thin exactly. I guess it's... Anyway, am I going off the rails? The question was about Sonny Gray. My point is that they might want to aim higher, but I think Sonny Gray definitely, I could totally see it happening. But like Yoshinobu, I think that's his first name, Yamamoto out of Japan, it seems like they are really interested in him, and that's a higher end guy, and I think you only maybe need one higher end guy, possibly, because if you've got like Yamamoto and Webb and then Cobb, and then you've got your young guys like Kyle Harrison, Tristan Beck, Keaton, Winn, and then there's a whole wave of other pitchers. But you could also, sign a Yamamoto and a Sonny Gray and then like trade from some of your young pitching, not Kyle Harrison in my opinion, but like Tristan Beck, Keaton, Winn, and then all of these other names that are kind of coming up behind them for that impact position player. Because like I said, the free agent market is thin on impact position players. And so that could be what they do, is that they actually sign pitching and then trade from their surplus of young pitching in order to get impact position players. So that was a complicated way of saying I do think Gray makes sense. You say, what would it cost? Let me just give a guess. He's 34. He's going to be 34, like I said, in less than a month. So I would imagine 34, 35, 36, maybe like a 3-year deal with like a vesting option or a club option. Maybe a vesting option for like a 4th year. Maybe a club option at, I don't know, close to $20 million a year. So like 3 years, $60 million, perhaps. That's kind of roughly ballpark where I'm landing on that, which is much more than the 2 years, $20 million-ish that they gave to Alex Cobb. So anyway, another long-winded answer, but the next question is going to be about the payroll. And what do I think the Giants' payroll is going to be? And if you know me, I have a lot of opinions on this. And so I'm going to share those opinions with you in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Everybody should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case, which I just got myself. It's in my kitchen in a drawer, and I'm bringing it with me when I travel internationally in like a month. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation, which I went through and it was super easy, to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. And get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using our code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Alrighty, here we go. We're going to talk about the payroll in 2024. What is it going to be? Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we might even be getting into more mailbag questions because, my goodness, you guys ask great questions, and I've got like 100 million questions sitting in the archives, and I want to get to them. I really am just dying for a managerial search update, just anything. And as soon as it comes out, you know where to find it, where to find the latest breakdown of it. That is on Locked On Giants, your team, every day, except Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes we do an emergency podcast on the weekends. But anyway, the next question comes from It's Lynn S., who asks, how high do you think the payroll will be next season? And this, I kind of answered a question like this. I don't know if it was a mailbag or if it was just some rambling spiel I went on about something else. But if you're a regular listener of the show, if you're an everydayer, you've heard me discuss how basically they seemed to, like, when Farhan Zaidi was hired, their payrolls were up around 200 million when he was brought in, like right before he was brought in. And then slowly and surely they crept down to about 160 million, where they stayed for like 3 straight years, basically. And then this year they just shot up by about 30 million bucks. And it might be like, oh, they're committed to spending more to try to make the team better, which, by the way, failure. You know, they were worse record-wise this year than they were last year, which is totally unacceptable, but nevertheless, that's not the point. But I say it makes so much sense. It makes too much sense because MLB sold its remaining shares of BAMTech, a company they started, to Disney for $900 million last winter. And the way that was paid out was to each team an equal cut, which comes out to it comes out to exactly $30 million a team. And so the Giants' payroll going up by $30 million just doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. And so what will the Giants' payroll be? How high do I think the payroll will be next season? This is where the rubber meets the road. Because it's like, plus we've got Greg Johnson, I don't even know what his title is, but he represents ownership, essentially, talking about how financially their goal is to break even. They don't want to lose money, which most teams don't, to be honest, and plenty of teams want to profit. And I know there was a Forbes article that said that the Giants were like second highest in profits or whatever, but that's not public information, and so I do not take that stuff seriously. And unfortunately, a lot of people seem to, as if it's factual, but it's not publicly available information, and so we don't know what is the truth. And so I kind of believe them, especially when we see, oh, they got $30 million extra from this BAMTech sale, and their payroll went up by $30 million. So, like, the best guess is, like, payroll would be around 160 million next year. But the big question is, are they willing to, like, take a loss, maybe? And I always say, it's an investment. Like, if you spend more and drive up fan engagement by being a better and more compelling team, you gotta spend money to make money, man. You know, like, it'll make for bigger crowds and bigger sales of jerseys and what have you. So, and then if you make the playoffs, there's more money that comes in with that. And so, you got to spend that money to make that money. And so this is like, I would be surprised, honestly, if they go back down to about 160 million. I think that they should feel the heat that they need to go higher than that. And they were at 190-ish, 195, honestly, ish this year. And maybe they just keep it around there, which is, it's a chunk of change. It's not like, people say, oh, they're the A's, they're the Tampa Bay Rays, they don't spend anything. Well, no, that's not true. They're more like in the top third-ish, like towards the back end of the top third, more towards the middle-ish versus the bottom or the top. And we'd rather they be closer to the top. So what do I think it'll be? I'll guess, and this is a bold prediction, that they won't pare it down and that they'll stay at that 190 something million dollar mark. That's my guess. Next question from Ben, great name, who asks, which rookies from this year do you anticipate being in the 2024 opening day lineup? So I'm not sure if you like literally mean the lineup or if you mean like on the opening day roster. I'm going to at first take your question at total face value and assume you really mean just in the lineup. And so let me just kind of look at the Giants roster really quick online to make sure I'm not going to miss anyone. So what did you say? Rookies from which rookies from this year do you anticipate being in the 2024 opening day lineup? So I think it's pretty simple. I would say Marco Luciano and Patrick Bailey. Those are my two guys. Patrick Bailey, Marco Luciano. I think like you could see Matos, but if they really want to upgrade, and they've talked about upgrading in the outfield and upgrading the defense in the outfield, Matos could be a part of the solution defensively. Although if you're an everydayer, you've heard me discuss how his defense wasn't great. And Gabe Kapler, since fired, said like one of the last public kind of comments he made, he was just like, Luis Matos has been bad in center. Like this was part of the problem with Kapler, was he was a little too honest with the media when he was criticizing players. He's not wrong, but it's like players don't like to see that. And anyway, he did say that. But anyway, so Matos can be optioned, and they want to make upgrades. At a certain point, you've got to like open space for upgrades. You're like committed to Haniger financially. Michael Conforto could opt in. You've got Yastrzemski and Slater already. So anyway, I think like the slam dunks at this point are Patrick Bailey and Marco Luciano. And then on the pitching side, which you didn't ask, but I'll just imagine that maybe that's what you meant, I think Kyle Harrison makes that opening day roster. He was up and down. Like when I say up and down, I mean the performance was a little hit or miss. His last outing of the year was 5 no-hit innings against the Dodgers. He had a dominant outing against the Reds with like 11 strikeouts, just phenomenal stuff that day. So I think he's on that opening day roster. And also Ryan Walker was great as a reliever. I think Tristan, Beck, and Keaton, Winn have a real shot as well to be on that opening day roster. So that's a lot of rookies. And Blake Sabol could be on that on the roster as well, but probably not in the opening day lineup. I think if Sabol's like your left fielder on opening day, something has gone horribly wrong. And I think he started on opening day and left this year, and so that would mean we're in for another year of a new left fielder, probably, almost certainly, I would imagine. They cannot possibly have Blake Sabol as their opening day left fielder in 2024. So, let's see. What is the next question? Do we have time for it? Yeah. Chubbs11 says, what are your thoughts regarding Andrew Bailey and Justin Veely? Do you think one, if not both, will be retained? So, I think that the way that the offense fell apart makes, and the fact that Gabe Kapler was fired, obviously makes the coaching staff situation really unstable. But I mean, that's like a separate point. The fact that Kapler was fired makes the coaching staff, the entire coaching staff, like on unstable ground. But on top of that, the way that they fell apart offensively in the second half so badly that they ended up being like a significantly below average offensive team, even worse than they were in 2022 when they weren't very good at all. I think that Justin Veely very well may go and that they'd find a replacement. Andrew Bailey, I would like, if any of them are brought back, I would imagine Bailey is retained over Veely, but I would not be surprised if both are gone and a new manager just kind of brings in their own staff. And so we're in for big changes, friends. And that's what I'm saying. You've got to come back every day and we will give you the latest. Right now it's like kind of radio silence, but this is all going to happen at some point in the next like 3 weeks. This is all going to come into place and into focus. So I can't wait to be with you then. So thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day airs tomorrow. Probably more mailbag questions or the latest going on with the San Francisco Giants. If anything comes out, any leaks, any rumors, anything at all, we'll bring it to you. So once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like the show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. The Dodgers got swept. That's hilarious. Just had to throw that in there one more time. So thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.